Hello, my name is Mitchell Collins, and for my topic I chose drug laws over the course of U.S. history. In the beginning, drugs have been around since the birth of America with the Declaration of Independence, 1776. During the 19th century, American people started using morphine, opium, and cocaine. Throughout the 20th century, these drugs grew in popularity, provoking America to create drug laws and policies. Up until the 21st century, America used classical thought, and classical thought means deterrence theory. And deterrence theory within the realm of drug laws and policies suggests American government creates and enforces harsher drug laws to persuade American citizens from using illegal drugs. So the bigger the punishment, the more enforcement, the less people are going to commit drug offenses. That's the thought. The first development of drug laws during the 20th century was the Smoking Opium Exclusion Act, 1909, the first federal law to ban non-medical use of substances. And then it was the Harrison Act of 1914, regulated and taxed production, importation, and distribution of opiates and cocaine. And then a couple decades later, Nixon became president, and he passed the Controlled Substance Act, 1970. It classified drugs based on their potential for abuse and medical application. This act also signifies the beginning of the war on drugs. During Nixon's presidency, which was 1969 to 1974, not only did the criminal justice system enforce harsher laws, but longer sentences were handed out as well. Nixon is also known for developing the DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration. So deterrence theory, before I play this slide, deterrence theory played a significant role in all of these laws because Nixon and Reagan all thought that by the harsher things we give out, the less people are going to commit these drug offenses. And as with the following here, these facts do not really align with that. Development of drugs continued. The war on drugs vastly increased in governmental involvement with Ronald Reagan's presidency from 1980 all the way to 1989. President Reagan immediately revitalized the war on drugs movement with increased government spending to fight drug abuse in America. Reagan first increased spending to fight crime from $86 million when he started to around $1 billion during his first 4 years. During his second presidency, laws passed in 1986 allotted $2 billion to the war on drugs, and that's from a peer-reviewed article, Turkington. Drug offenses also increased, almost double in his second part of presidency. Continued from 1980 to, this is a quote from one of my articles, from 1980 to 1997, the rate of incarceration for drug offenses increased nearly tenfold, from 15 per 100,000 adults to 148 per 100,000 adults. Today, nearly half of America's federal inmates are in prison on drug convictions. I should also add that the average length of prison sentences increased by 36% since 1990. That's because of mandatory minimums and three-strike laws. During the 20th and early 21st century, the mandatory minimums and three-strike laws were the main contributors to this increased incarceration and these extended sentences. They were just really harsh laws that were thought to deter individuals from using drugs, but in the end, it just caught more people using drugs, and it didn't really change what people did. It just put them in jail. Negatively impacts American families. So now that is a little bit of the history of drug policies and laws, and now I'm going to be looking at state by state. Federal drug policies influenced state by states to address their laws according to federal policy. According to Exum 2011, Indiana's prison population grew 41% from 2000 to 2009. Moreover, 55% of Indiana's prison admissions in 2008 were because of nonviolent drug offenses. So there's a clear issue with the mass incarceration and nonviolent drug offenses. Another article that I read was the Turkington 2017. Louisiana it talked about Louisiana, and Louisiana has the highest incarceration rate in the world, and a main contributing factor is the war on drugs. These are some facts here, not really good facts. Louisiana adopted federal drug policy, which gave rise to the striking number of adults in jail. 816 per 100,000 people in Louisiana are in jail. Before the war on drugs era, Louisiana held the 13th highest rate of incarceration. Today, it is the greatest in the world. 816 per 100,000 is extremely high. This could be fixed by eliminating mandatory minimums for drug offenses. 58% of citizens imprisoned in Louisiana are convicted for nonviolent offenses. Most of the nonviolent offenses having to do with drugs in some sort of way. So you can see that how the federal policy really affected Louisiana, and Louisiana enforced their laws based on federal policy, and the mandatory minimums just got out of hand, and almost 50-60% of the people that were being put in jail were for minor offenses. A shocking quote from the article, from the Turkington article, was Title 14 and 40. There are approximately 164 mandatory minimum sentences, and more than half of those are for nonviolent crimes. More than half of the new prison sentences for drug offenses are solely for possession. Marijuana possession in any amount with a penalty of 6 to 12 months in jail. Bernard Noble, in 2010, was convicted for possession of 2 marijuana joints, and he was imprisoned for more than 5 years. In 2015, though, Louisiana decreased this penalty, moving in the right direction. But as you can see, this is all still very new. That was only 10 years ago that people were being put in jail for 6 to 12 months for just possession of marijuana. Other states have taken steps in a positive direction for drug policy and drug laws. Proposition 36 is a good example. 2010, a California voter initiative posed a solution to war on drugs policies. If your third offense was nonviolent, you were subject to jail time. However, this does change if you have been convicted of rape, murder, etc. States today, such as Illinois, Michigan, have recently legalized recreational use of marijuana, thus decreasing the amount of mass incarceration in those areas. It really does vary state by state. You can Google what states have marijuana regular, and a lot of states are moving in the direction of legalizing marijuana because of their problems with mass incarceration and keeping up with drug laws and drug policies. Recognizing the solution. States today are starting to recognize that the war on drugs may not be the solution to America's drug problem. Millions of families today are being restored and spared due to new state-by-state drug policy and laws. To learn more on the subject, you can watch the documentary The 13th on Netflix. I watched it about a year ago, and it's about mass incarceration and also racism during all of this war on drugs, and how African Americans were criminalized, and crack cocaine was criminalized, but in the African American community, and the incarceration rate for African Americans was just out of this world because of all they were doing was handling like possession, and they were getting sentenced to 5 years in jail or to life in jail after 3 strikes just for possession. And that was during the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and it's just until recently that America is recognizing that deterrence theory is not the perfect solution. There needs to be other solutions like rehabilitation and treatment facilities for drug offenses. It shouldn't just be jail time every time. Thank you.